Latino voters don't vote like minorities, except when politics forces them to. One of the most persistent mistakes in American politics is the belief that Latino voters must choose between race and class. That framing is false. Latino politics has always been about both. Race matters, class matters, culture matters. What changes is which one becomes dominant in any given political moment. And understanding that delicate balance is one of the central arguments I make in my book, The Latino Century. America's political language has been shaped for centuries by a black and white racial framework, and that framework explains a great deal about our history. But it does a very poor job of explaining Latino voters across most elections. Latinos are not a post slavery population, and for the most part, we're not a legacy segregation population, though those stories are a part of our experience. We are overwhelmingly a working class population, moving generation by generation towards economic stability, upward mobility. That trajectory changes how people engage in politics. Now, under normal conditions, Latino voting behavior is driven primarily by pocketbook economics, jobs, wages, rent, healthcare, affordability, cost of living, not because race is irrelevant, but because economic survival is immediate. It's paramount. When you're worried about keeping the lights on, theoretical political debates move down the list. Now, this doesn't make Latino voters apathetic, it makes them rational. But of course, we're not living under normal political conditions. In fact, you could argue we're not even living in rational times. We're living through ICE raids, mass deportations, and the deliberate use of fear as a political weapon. And when the state targets people based on ethnicity, well, race becomes unavoidable. This is where the analysis has to become more precise. We are not witnessing a racial realignment, and we haven't for the past few years. We are witnessing an ethnic de-alignment. Latinos are not consolidating into a single racial voting bloc. They are loosening their attachments to both political parties. And that is happening in response to pressure, threat, and economic dislocation. Latinos do not begin elections as an ethnic voting bloc. They become one when politics leaves them no other choice. History makes this clear. In 1994 in California, after Proposition 187, in Arizona in the early 2000s, under Sheriff Joe Arpaio, the Trump era, nationally over the past decade. Latino turnout spikes not when politicians flatter identity, but when communities feel attacked. Ethnic voting blocs are not organic. They are manufactured by political behavior. So when I say Latino voters don't vote like minorities, what I mean is this. Absent ethnic targeting, Latino voters behave like working class Americans on the rise, upwardly mobile, aspirational. But when politics racializes daily life, race and class collapse into the same lived experience. You cannot tell a family that's worried about deportation to separate economics from identity because they're essentially one and the same. That choice is false because reality is unified. And this also explains why Latino voters have such a weak partisan attachment. In fact, Latinos have the weakest partisan affiliation of any of the four major racial and ethnic groups in this country. Most lean Democratic, but few feel fully at home there. And some have been drifting Republican, but few feel fully accepted there either. This is not Latinos feeling ideologically confused. They are responding to a political system that treats them inconsistently, economically from one cycle, ethnically the next, bouncing back and forth. But as Latinos gradually become homeowners, college graduates, small business owners, their instincts, their economic instincts evolve. They do become more skeptical of taxation. More of them support law enforcement, more concerned with stability and order. That's not radicalization, it's assimilation. But assimilation does not eliminate risk when politics turn punitive. Get this, by 2040, roughly 70% of new American homeowners will be Latino. Homeownership anchors people to institutions, communities, and long-term stability. And yet today, many of those same families feel exposed and targeted, regardless of their generational difference. They could be first-generation immigrants, the sons and daughters of immigrants, or they could be third-generation Americans. That contradiction, economic integration paired with ethnic vulnerability, defines this political moment. Latino voters are not choosing between race and class. They are navigating between both at the same time. Class drives priorities. Race defines risk. And when risk rises, politics changes. And until American politicians understand that ethnic de-alignment is being driven by political pressure, not cultural preference, Latino voters will continue to surprise the pundits, confound strategists, realign elections. In the next episode, we'll take on that one issue that everyone assumes defines Latino politics, immigration, and why it's so often a proxy for something much, much deeper. I'm Mike Madrid, author of The Latino Century, How America's Largest Minority is Transforming Democracy. You've been following this series of Understanding the Latino Vote for the Great Transformation. Subscribe, like, share, and most importantly, offer up your comments on what other topics you'd like me to tackle so that we can do further episodes to help you understand more about the Latino vote in America.